Good morning, everyone. Thanks to everybody for being here today. I'd like to welcome our first panelist from A Rose for Her Grave, Chrishell Stause, Colin Egglesfield, Laura Ramsey, and Rachel Stubington. Welcome, you guys.
Thank you.
Thank you.
So nice to have you guys here. Our first question this morning is going to be from Jay Bobbin. Jay, are you ready?
Yes, I'm sorry. I didn't know
No
I was
problem.
first. I'm very sorry. Good morning, everyone. Thank you for doing this. My question is for Colin. Colin, it's about this movie, but also your career in general. You seem equally comfortable playing somebody very charming and very well-meaning, as in Something Borrowed, which is a favorite movie of mine. But also, you seem to enjoy playing roles that are on the darker side. Certainly this, even things like Chicago Fire, where you've done only a couple of episodes. Do you have a preference, or is it by the project for you? That just what appeals to you if you've got a given project?
Yeah, I would say it just depends on the project. I think what actors love to do is play roles that are departures from who we really are. And I've had the privilege of working on so many great romantic comedies, but after a while, it's fun to explore different parts of who we are and go to some of these deeper, darker places that we don't necessarily get to go to. And for me, acting is very therapeutic. It's something where when we are able to delve into some of these deeper, darker places of who we are, it can be uncomfortable and intense. And especially with this film, playing someone who's actually, a real life person. Shooting some of these scenes were incredibly intense, and especially working with these two young boys who played my sons in the film. We constantly were checking in with each other just to make sure that we were okay, just because, with this type of story and it being a real life story, we want to make sure that we're honoring the content and not glorifying anything, and just making sure that we're portraying these characters as realistically as possible, but also uncovering something that is deep and dark about the human psyche, which is, for a lot of people, it can be fascinating, but also, unfortunately, I'm sure a lot of people can relate to being in relationships like this. So hopefully, by telling this kind of story, we just keep, shining a light on what can happen if you allow yourself to get into certain types of relationships. And from each role that I've played, I've always learned something from playing characters like this, but I've always just tried to honor the character as much as possible.
Thank you very much.
Thank you. Our next question is from Valerie Milano.
I have a follow-up to that, Colin. And also for Laura, maybe if you can chime in about the challenges of playing your role. Maybe if you can give me an experience that you had on working on the film, the challenges as you were talking about.
Laura, you want to take this one?
Yes. It was for me, it was challenging in that trying to put yourself in a situation where you are in these, you're with this person that you think is the love of your life, and you have these moments that they show another side, and trying to portray that of how that would have been in real life. And there's some scenes in there that are where he's yelling, and some where you have to be extremely vulnerable. And that was, for me, I felt so comfortable with Colin working with him that I felt safe to be able to explore those avenues within myself, and also bringing to light what could have been in these moments for Cindy. So I don't know if that answers your question, but
Yeah, I think bottom line, what really helped was that we just trusted each other through this whole process. And the great thing, having known Chrishell for so many years, having worked together on All My Children, Chrishell and we have such a great relationship. We're like brother and sister. And so it was easy for us to just step into these characters. And with Laura, and even with Rachel, what was really important with the story is that we essentially, for us to be able to go to these deep, dark places, we needed to be able to trust each other. And after shooting some of these scenes, we would just like look at each other and be like, wow. We just had to like shake it off because it's really intense to go to some of these places. So it was really great. And also with Marty Go, our director, incredibly supportive and sweet. So it was a very safe, like Laura was saying, place for us to be able to explore these deep, dark places.
Okay, thank you both.
Thank you.
Thank you. Our next question is from April Banks.
Hi, so this one is for Chrishell. What triggers were alarming to you besides the friend moving so fast in the relationship after becoming a widower?
Well, it's interesting. I think that there were, there were a few things. There was one part that we shot, but it ended up getting cut. But I think, originally I'm telling him that he was talking to me at first, and then but that was cut. But so I feel like there was a long line of different things. What you'll see as far as triggers, we all either have been this person or we've had this friend, and you're telling them, I don't think this is a good idea, but you're walking that line of how much I want to insert myself. But I think, whoever you're dating is a jerk or whatever. And so I've definitely had be before, and I think the triggers that you saw on the movie were, him kind of wanting her, hang out with her friends, making a divide between us. And we were so close. If somebody really loves you, they'd love that you have that support system. So that's a huge red flag. Another one would be the fact that, he starts telling her, what to wear. Of course, it always seems to start out like, oh, I really like this. But then it ends up turning into, he was very controlling of how her nails were, her, and she just started to look different and her energy started to change. And obviously, as her best friend, I picked up on all of those things. But yeah, in real life, I'm sure everybody can relate to this. Everybody's had a friend at some point that you don't approve of whoever they're dating, and you have to try and balance how much, you insert your opinion about that. And when you realize it's time to back off, I definitely feel like enough has happened that I need to voice my concerns, but then it comes to a point where you kind of have to back off.
Thank you so much. You guys all did a great job in this movie.
Thank you.
Thank you. Our next question is from mylifetime.com, and it's for Rachel. Rachel, can you talk about your role and your character's relationship with Colin's character, Randy?
Yeah, totally. It's really interesting to get to work with because for the first half, I completely idolize him and I look up to him so much, which, is hard to dive into this story and know what a monster he is and then go back and pretend like I don't know anything. So, that was really cool to foster that kind of relationship. He was such a mentor to me on set that it was super easy to fall into that. And then in the second half, I totally flip, and Chrishell helps Lori. Oh my God. Lori helps me realize that I deserve better and I need to stand up for myself. So that was a cool flip to get to play.
Awesome. Thank you so much.
You nailed it. I
think. Our next question is from Jamie Ruby.
Hello, thanks for talking to us. So I know, Chrishell, you sort of touched on this, but for the rest of you, since you talked about some of the difficult things, what did you connect with the easiest with the characters? For whoever else wants to answer.
I'll go.
Yeah, go ahead. You go.
I'll start. For me, I had connected with Cindy in that I was going through a divorce at the time. And so I really channeled these feelings of, loss of family, vulnerability. You want something to work out so bad because you have children involved, and you're almost in denial because you wanted this fairy tale thing that we all fantasize to have. And then when it becomes the reality that that's not what it is, you'll do anything to try to keep it going and keep it together. And I think I could relate to all of that because I was kind of going through something similar in my personal life. Anyone else?
I think for Dana,
Oh, go ahead, Rachel.
I think for Dana, there's so much insecurity, and that's what makes it so easy for Randy to prey on her. So I think diving back into what it was like to be in high school and be so insecure, and then have this strong figure, affirm things about you that you've never been complimented on before. So I think just working with those insecurities was something that was easy for me to tap into.
Yeah, and playing this character, I can relate to, everyone described Randy as like one of the most just outgoing, friendly, gregarious guys who was always, he cared a lot about his sons. And so I could relate to that part of Randy, but what was difficult and what I always struggled to try to understand is how could someone do what he did in terms of just have an absolute disregard for someone else's life in the sense that he could just easily dispose of, two of his wives, and then just move on and act as if like nothing ever happened. There was a scene after well, I don't know how much I want to, or I can give away here, but there was a scene after something pretty tragic happens, and I'm sitting in a diner with my two sons, and just the absolute lack of feeling or empathy or sympathy that Randy had. It was almost as if like his shelving for empathy just was non-existent. And it's just, for me, these types of characters are interesting because I always try to find out, how does someone become that way? And when you start to do some research, and when I was doing research about Randy, just finding about a little bit about how his upbringing was and how Randy's brother even killed a hitchhiker. So the fact that these two brothers actually were able to kill other human beings, you got to wonder what kind of upbringing they had. And I'm not saying that it's justifiable that someone's upbringing justifies that, their behavior is okay. But for me, that's what I love about acting and portraying characters, is just trying to delve into the psyche and understanding, how does someone become who they are? And once you start to delve into there, you can kind of see why they would make these decisions or how they are able to do what they do. And so someone may call this person a monster, but in a lot of ways, I try to just, anyone who does what they do, they can justify it in one way or another. And as an actor, you have to get to that place where everything you do is justifiable, even though it may be despicable from an outward perspective. But that was difficult, especially doing the scenes with my sons where I'm just like an absolute, it's very disturbing, some of these scenes that we did. And that's something that was difficult for me to relate to.
All right. Thank you.
Thank you. Our next question is from Rick Bentley.
Thank you. Chrishell, I've got two quick questions for you. Once daytime dramas often get accused of being over the top with their stories, and yet when you do something like this and you see real life is this wild, you think that maybe daytime's gotten a bad rap? And secondly, you do both acting as a character and we've seen you as yourself on screen. Are you as comfortable in each of those?
So for the first one, I will say, I agree. I think a lot of times the fact that, you know, this is based on a true story, there are certain points that if it was fiction, you'd roll your eyes because you'd be like, well, that's unbelievable. Or, of course, they would have followed up on that. Of course, they would have not just let him go with like a charming little, oh, you know, and let him go. They, you know, so there's certain points where Randy got away with things because he was charming and good looking that it's just crazy to me. So I think that it's one of those things. Yes, soaps can be over the top and campy, which is actually one of the reasons I love it so much. But so many times we see these things ripped from the headlines that are way crazier than anything written. And that's the only reason it's believable and compelling, because it's so hard to believe that it actually happened. And for your second question, I have to say that I feel more comfortable playing a character. This is the first, you know, acting is the first thing I ever pursued. I think reality television is something that will never probably sit comfortably in my bones, even though here I am, and this is, you know, a major part of what I do. It's just, I don't know if I keep wondering if it's ever going to feel comfortable, and it has yet to feel comfortable. So maybe one day, I have no idea. But as of now, I love being on set. I loved working with this cast. As Colin said, him and I go way back from All My Children. So we already had such a rapport there. When we're playing these characters, I knew he was going to nail it. And I was so amazingly surprised by everyone, how we just connected so instantly. So for me, I'm much more comfortable on a set in character.
Thank you.
Thank you. We have time for 2 more questions. We're going to go with Chris Gunther and then Suzanne. So go ahead, Chris. Chris?
Yes, I'm hoping that you guys can hear me. I definitely hope so.
Yep.
Yep.
Okay, got you. So, all right. So my question is for Colin. Colin, how much of your character do you identify with in your real life as you portrayed this film?
Well, growing up with my younger brother, where we would get into some pretty vicious fights. We're chasing each other around with hockey sticks and yelling at each other. I would say my brother was probably my biggest, help with preparing for these kinds of characters. I don't know. I just feel like I think we all have parts of ourselves that when we get angry or frustrated, we can go to some of these deep, dark places. And I think, fortunately, I grew up in a household where, I had loving parents who supported me and would talk through things with me and support me with whatever it was that I was dealing with. And I think, unfortunately, some people don't have that type of nurturing growing up. And so they kind of have to fend for themselves on how to deal with their emotions, and they never quite develop maybe the emotional intelligence to be able to deal with certain problems. And, unfortunately, sometimes when you grow up with maybe narcissistic parents, that can kind of lead into, we become what we see and how we grow up. And I think that was the case with Randy, in the sense that he never had much nurturing, and it just seemed like he himself was just incredibly narcissistic, and anything and everything he did was calculated to how he could gain whatever it was that he wanted for himself. And unfortunately, that's how some people are in real life. And that's what's so tragic about this story. And I feel for the families of the wives of Randy, and in the sense that you could see the red flags like Chrishell was talking about. But unfortunately, sometimes you have to let people experience for themselves. And because no matter what you do to warn people, a lot of the times people just have to experience things for themselves. And unfortunately, sometimes it can lead to real tragedy.
Absolutely. Hey, man, thank you for your time.
Yeah, you're welcome.
And our last question is going to be from Suzanne.
Hi, you guys. I wanted to echo what someone else said. You guys all did an amazing job in this movie.
Thank you.
Thank you.
And, my question is for Colin and Chrishell. Is this the first time you've worked together since All My Children? And did either of you meet the real Lori or Randy?
This is our first time working together since my children. I mean, we've seen each other since then, but we haven't had the pleasure of working in different characters. So that was really exciting, really fun. And what was the second part that you asked?
Have either of you met the
Oh.
real Lori or Randy?
Oh, I have not met Lori, Colin.
I have not met Randy. Randy is in jail right now.
Right.
And yeah, I just, man, as interested as I would be to talk to him, honestly, I just feel that that's a really good question. If I had the opportunity to do it, I don't think I would. I just feel like it would just be too close to the real tragedy of this story. And hopefully I was able to honor the essence of who he was in this story, to shine a light on how, hopefully people can see these warning flags and before they get into maybe similar situations. But yeah, I think it would just be too disturbing to meet someone like that. And I don't think he would have, I don't think honestly he would have given me much that would have helped me play this character. Sometimes people ask have you actually talked to the real person to help give you insight on how to play him or her? And I just don't think, I don't think they would give much. I don't necessarily think they would be that helpful. So really good question, but no, I did not meet him.
Thank you both.
You're welcome.
Thank you. That is our time for this panel. Thank you to everyone for participating. And please tune into A Rose for Her Grave, the Randy Roth story on Saturday, February 18th at 8/7 Central. Thanks, you guys.
Thank you.
Thank you.